In this brief show, we will go over what is an upstream civilization and what is a downstream civilization. The Earth was initially one landmass, or what we call Pangaea, meaning we had one landmass and one temperate climate throughout the world. You see, early on, some 200 years after the flood, in the age of a descendant of Noah, by the name of Peleg, the earth was not only divided into different land masses from a pangeastic earth, but the lands were divided into 3 climate zones. The misguided idolaters created a hot zone called Hades. Hades is the Greek word for heck. We read about HE double hockey sticks in later scriptures influenced by early thought. Unfortunately, the idea of heck and its implementation would be known by one too many religions, even by some branches of the Abrahamic faith. These ancient folk in the age of Peleg created also a temperate zone called Mediterranean, or Middle Earth, which would be deemed heavenly for being neither hot nor cold. These ancient peoples would also go on to create Hyperborea, or extreme north zones, with cold and ice, which would sterilize bacterial and viral growth and serve as a purgatory for healing. Along with the climates, there were other hierarchies that were created, namely upstream and downstream civilizations as well. This resulted in the emergence of different races of human beings. The 3 climate zones resulted in creation of the different races, namely the Xanthocroid race, that is the light whites, blonde, blue-eyed, fair, the Melanocroid race, namely the dark whites, that is people with darker hair and eye color, but still fair to some extent, the Mongoloid races, that is the people of the Far East, with their distinctive eyes and facial features and hair and stature, and lastly, the most oppressed of the races, the Australoid races, that is the dark-skinned folk, primarily inhabiting the equatorial belt, be it in Africa or in Asia. The details of the creation of these races is beyond the scope of this particular show, but if the viewer is interested, it will be gladly made available. What is an upstream civilization? What is a downstream civilization? An upstream civilization is located nearest to the fountainhead. It is where the water quality is most pristine and the air quality and land quality is the highest. As we go further downstream, people use the water and then expel processed and used water back into the stream. As the stream goes through various towns and villages and cities, the water gets increasingly polluted until it is not of optimal quality by the time it pours into the sea. Hopefully, this illustrates to you how important it is to have good quality air, water, and land, and for all lands to be upstream and to have no downstream locations that are habitable or even exist. We shall look at the more concrete example of an upstream and downstream location by observing the Mississippi River in the United States. As you can see, the river originates in Lake Itasca in northern Minnesota, and it is of optimal water quality. By the time it reaches down all the way to New Orleans, it is unfortunately no longer of optimal quality. To continue our example of the Mississippi River, the north of the river is upstream, and the south of the river is unfortunately downstream. The same also applies across the x-axis, unfortunately. On the x-axis, the east coast is rather upstream, fortunately, and the west coast, unfortunately, is not so upstream, something we hope to rectify for the better. On a global scale, England would be upstream, while moving away from England, we would end up rather downstream, unfortunately. Along the x-axis, Japan, not shown here because the US is superimposed upon it, and the Koreas would be rather downstream. And the closer you move to Europe, the more upstream it would get, until after England, when moving away from England would mean going further downstream as one approaches closer to the Far East. All this we hope to change for the better and bring about greater equality. As an individual moves from Hyperborea to Mediterranean, and unfortunately further downstream, the environment gets increasingly non-benign, as do measures which are taken to protect the virtues of the people. The vigilance, indoctrination, and rigor in downstream locations increases. The incidence of impiety in downstream locations increases. The further an individual moves away from an upstream location, the greater the rigor of their lifestyle. Case in point, In downstream locations, people have to engage in extreme cleansing rituals like circumcision, dietary laws, the use of odoriferous detox agents like spices, and other strong detox agents in foods. Calisthenics like qigong and yoga and tai chi. In contrast, life in upstream locations is laid back, benign, and the citizens can roam through even the jungles, camping even in the wild without fear of lions or tigers or even mosquitoes or flies. This hopefully changes for the better for all life, and may all life be able to emulate the best. In conclusion, hierarchy has been baked into the very geography of Earth, unfortunately. This physical and geological inequity seeps into every facet of human life, like our legal, social, and cultural systems and attitudes. Justice, in this case economic perhaps, asks for equality, which is both restoration and compensation. But we want justice of every kind, not merely economic, but racial, physical, physiological, psychological, financial, relationship-wise, in every way. The first step towards moving towards righteousness and justice is perhaps to recognize what is wrong, perhaps. May we have the ability to see truth as true and hold on to the truth, and the ability to see falsehood as false and avoid falsehood.